In Part 18 of our build guide, we install the main harness, dash accessories, and positive cable. Seal up the bulkhead by applying silicone around the bolt tubes and frame rails. Repeat on the driver's side. Before installing the main harness, install edge trim on the front passenger side of the tunnel, on the bottom edge of the bulkhead, and on the tunnel cap. Place the main harness on the passenger floor and guide the fuse box plugs over the rear brake line. Lay the harness in the tunnel as you work your way to the front. Drape the dash wires over the pedal box and pull the front bundle of wires through the bulkhead. This bundle should include the headlight plugs, radiator fan, and other front end wires. Use a 1/4-inch drill bit to resize the BCM mount holes. Connect the BCM plugs. Use a 7mm socket for the largest two plugs. Latch the gray levers on the blue plugs. Install the BCM with the supplied hardware using a 5/32 Allen wrench and a 7/16 socket. Pull the slack out of the main harness at the rear of the tunnel. Tuck the wires under the floor pan. Route the harness on the passenger side of the tunnel divider. Push the big intersection toward the bulkhead. Bend the dash wires to match the shape of the pedal box. Use one of the throttle pedal bolts and a coated clamp to hold the harness. Use another clamp with a donor bolt and nut to hold the harness at the rear of the pedal box. Connect the throttle and brake pedal wires. Connect the gauge panel and bolt it to the frame with the supplied hardware. The aluminum spacers go between the gauge panel and the frame. Use a 5/32 Allen wrench and a 7/16 socket to tighten the hardware. Install the ignition switch with original hardware. Use a 7mm socket to tighten the screws. Route the power steering wires under the pedal support tube. Guide the ignition wires between the gauge panel and the frame. Aim the ground wires toward the pedal box. Zip tie the harness to the pedal support tube. Remove the bolt from the dash ground lugs. Use the bolt to connect the grounds to the top hole at the back of the pedal box. Connect the power steering wires. Connect the ignition switch wires. Zip tie the wires to the dash bar. Double over excess wire before tying it. Use a 1/2-inch socket to remove the nuts and washers from the ground stud on the battery box. Leave one of the flat washers on the stud. Slip the battery ground cable on the stud. Then install the other flat washer, lock washer, and one of the nuts. Check continuity between the ground cable and the dash ground lugs. Pull the front end wires over the steering rack. Connect the horn and battery current sensor. Zip tie the wires to the frame. Double over the excess length of wires. Use a 7/16 socket to loosen the middle forestrap nut. You might need to use a 5/32 Allen wrench under the car to hold the bolt. Remove the bolt from the tunnel ground lugs. Install the lugs on the forestrap bolt and reinstall the washer and nut. Check continuity to the battery ground cable. Use wire cutters to cut the mounting post off the big red fuse holder. Then use a knife to cut the leftover plastic. Put a strip of double-sided foam tape on the fuse holder and then tape it to the side of the battery box. Finish by zip tying the holder to the battery box. Measure 8 feet from the red housing on the positive battery cable. If you are building an extended Goblin, mark the cable 4 inches longer. Cut through the loom and cable. Peel back the loom and strip the end of the cable. Solder the lug to the positive cable. Tape up the end of the cable. Slip the loom back over the cable and pull it tight. Cut off excess and tape the loom to the cable. Install the positive cable from the front of the car. Route the cable to the rear of the tunnel. Lay the vacuum line on top of the wire harness and zip tie it all together. In the next video, we'll install the radiator, hoses, and fuel tank.